Welcome to Rendered, the show that uncovers the spark of bringing food to table. I am Intoxicate Kate Slunch, your host, and today we are diving in with chef/owner Constantine Kalandranis. How are you?
Very, very good. Thank you for having me on this great little thing. I'm excited. I'm in my car, but not driving.
That's good.
Just so you know. Yeah, I'm bad enough as a driver without recording.
So tell me a little bit about your restaurants, because I know you have multiple restaurants in different areas. So let's start there.
Sure. Well, the first restaurant I opened is 8 North Broadway in Nyack, which is in Rockland County. The second one is 273 Kitchen, which is in Harrison, New York. It's a smaller version of the first. And I'm involved in a partnership in a restaurant in Long Island called TT's, which is a taco and tequila bar in Montauk for the summers when we slow down over here.
And aside from the taco in Long Island, because you said it's seasonal, are your restaurants up and running currently?
Yep, we're running on a kind of a skeleton crew like most, and doing to go and delivery and takeout and curbside, which is kind of all the same thing. So they're running on that model now. Just we do a $45 dinner for four, and you can add items to it, and we're just trying to keep it like super simple for the guests, but also for us right now, just to be able to get it out properly.
And before the COVID-19 outbreak, how would you describe the cuisine at each location?
Neighborhood fine dining. So meaning it was more casually set as a price, a little more casual feel than, severe or higher end fine dining, and kind of a loose menu that would change daily.
And were you doing a lot of takeout before this?
Zero. I mean, none. I didn't even know where to buy an aluminum container. We were forced into to learn about it, but we were, the amount of takeout we would do could have been twice or three times a week. And this was usually for specific people that just liked the food, but didn't really want to partake in the whole dining experience. And they would pay, full price for that, which I always thought was funny, getting like a nice steak in a container at your house, with all the fixings. But now it's all we know, I guess, for the moment.
Well, I mean, from an outsider's perspective, I think you probably wouldn't even know that you've never done takeout before, because in my opinion, your marketing of it and actually the logistics of it seemed pretty seamless when I came to pick up my dinner at 273.
Thank you.
So, and
That's great.
It was absolutely delicious too, because I was telling you, when I ordered that, it was really hard for me to find fish at the time anywhere.
Yeah.
And
sure.
You got your hands on some pretty delicious.
Yeah, somehow. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, we're able to get, I would say, a little bit more than the average consumer, seafood wise and vegetable wise, but it is scant, So we're understanding of our vendors and purveyors and farmers, and I think our guests are pretty understanding of what we can get. I had a customer that was very upset yesterday, which hasn't happened a lot. But he was very upset because the menu online, or the menu had something on it that he wanted that we didn't have, because it was a seafood item. And I think that's part of our brand, is to make sure that I can go to the market early and pick up the food and make sure, even if it's a can of something, that we can actually like use something different or use something creative, or just kind of get inspired as we're shopping, so we can put together a menu for that night or the next couple nights and have a couple of consistent fixtures in between. So we're trying to like almost do a similar thing, but in a box to go. So, I would just urge all the guests out there to be to understand that we're doing this as restaurants, not now to make money, is just to lose less,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And I think that's a pretty, for any of the restaurants that are open, they have to understand, you know, these chefs and people that are out there are taking a risk, but it's doing our part for the community. You know, we're not doctors, and God bless them, and you know, we're not in the construction field, but our small part is getting out there, getting the food, staying safe and staying clean, and then getting it to the consumer in an isolated way, so they're not at risk.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so
well, I think it's very interesting to me, and I think you and I could probably talk about this for a long time. But you know, if you think about the tragedies that have happened, you know, big newsworthy events that have happened that have kind of brought our communities at a standstill, you know, you as chefs are the first on the front line usually, you know, picking up a 6-foot table and getting a sterno and you know, trying to feed people as best you can, right? Like that's just what you do. And on a regular daily basis outside of this landscape, you know, it's you guys that are there at all the nonprofit fundraisers and galas, you know, showcasing your food. And yes, there's value and for you for doing that. But, you know, those things wouldn't be the same. Those events wouldn't be the same if it wasn't for all these restaurateurs. So there's so much that you guys keep up that it's even in this pandemic, I've seen, you know, you all, you know, delivering to doctors and nurses in hospitals. And, you know, think about all the people that are at home and cannot shop. And you know, you're like a lifesaver providing food.
Yeah, and no, and people have been very supportive. I mean, the thing about the chef field is there's a little bit of, you get to a point where there you need that fulfillment of giving. You know, the only way we give is through food and through teaching our team and teaching people about maybe what we know as food knowledgeable people in food. But when you get to do the fundraisers or do something good for someone, it's because we need that to keep going. We don't have the finances to keep going, so we need that extra thing.
Right.
You know?
I mean, it's true. It's true. And I think, you know, you and I talk about misconceptions quite often when it comes to, you know, the difference between the reality of a chef's life and what I think people perceive. And I think there's a little bit of a misconception for a number of reasons that chefs and restaurants have this like abundance of cash, right? And can you kind of give in like a broad scope scenario, like how the numbers run typically in this in the industry?
Sure. Yeah, of course. I mean, that's something I could talk about for a while too. I mean, right now it's a bloodbath. You know, like the restaurateurs that are out there and smiling and on social, including myself, we're doing it because we don't want our consumers to feel that. We want them to feel good and feel like they're getting amazing food from an abundant source, you know, and we're used to that. That's what we signed up for. But the way the numbers work is very simply, all the restaurants now that are paying $10,000 a month in rent or less have a very small chance to break even, you know. But anything over that, there's not enough people, volumes of people ordering from these places to keep them afloat, you know. So the brackets that are in lower rent grades have a little chance right now to break even, because we'll hopefully take a couple $100s a week for ourselves to live. We'll pay a couple $100s out to the people that will actually be with us and work with us and don't feel at risk and are ready to put themselves out there. And we'll keep the food very simple, stupid, and delicious, but less inventory, because, you know, when you make $100, $30 go to food, 20 to 25 go to labor or more. and then the rent swallows it up. So you have about, I would say $4 left on every $100, and there's like yesterday we did $1,000, and God bless, but it's a tremendous amount of work to make $50. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I think it's also important to realize, like, even the pizzeria and the delis, they rely on high volume, and that volume's not there. That's also something to talk about. It's not like the pizzeria and Chinese food stores and the very, very casual fine dining that were already set up for this. They're having a hard time too, because it becomes a direct loss.
Right.
Our restaurants are tapping into a new market. So although we're learning about it, we're lucky in that forum. But, right now, everybody's rents, you're only using a quarter of your restaurant for the amount of people that walk in. So all these rents are super sky high now for the model, for the business model. So, that's what it is.
And are there other expenses like insurance and, your POS, your point of sale system? Are those are all costing you money right now, correct?
Yeah, those are all part of your fixed costs. Things like open table, which you can suspend. Things like POS, which you can work out a deal. Insurance, where everybody gets insurance because they have to. And the only reason you think you need insurance, even if you didn't have to get it, is because if there was ever a reason for a lack of business. And right now there is, but it's not covered under a pandemic for everybody. Doesn't, no one saw it coming. So you're sitting there, and the insurance companies don't have enough money to cover. So it's a complete loss, So, you try to cover those things by selling whole chickens or pieces of fish or whatever you got to do,
And with you covering 2 restaurants right now, is that difficult?
Yeah, it's difficult. I mean, I'm also losing chefs that are not comfortable being out there. So I'm doing more and more myself. And that's a weird spot for an employer, because you love your team and you want them to be safe and healthy and mentally ready to come back when it's time. Right. But, there's only so much we can do, so, and it leads to frustration. Like, we're getting to a point where, the reason we hire a management team as chefs is to protect us from ourselves, because a lot of us are nuts. And it's not that we don't love our guests or love our people, but like the exposure is a lot when you're talking to them on the phone, cooking their food, meeting them, and they're maybe a little cranky or nasty or nuts themselves. It becomes different. And that's not a safe territory, I don't think, I mean, it's nice to meet all these great people. It's amazing, but there's a reason that chefs have a team of front people, especially in our bracket of food. It's because we need to be in the kitchen and be creative, and other people need to be there kind of defending us from ourselves, right. In that way.
I think you have to have people there that have the strength of dealing with people. And I think,
Sure.
You are focusing on your strength, which is having the talent in the kitchen.
Right. Exactly. So I'm not crazy.
And how many roughly staff members are currently not able to work with you?
So roughly we had to and we didn't, we did the process of like, we don't have any work. So until it's time, if you guys are going to go on unemployment, so on and so forth, we have about 4 or 5 in each location, because the bar has been a non-existent thing. Like, we're allowed to sell these wines and beers and things, but with liquor stores open, it doesn't translate, at least for us, unless I'm doing something correctly. I'm seeing it personally as like, okay, that's just like, yeah, we sell a $20 bottle of wine at cost, because we can, and it's inventory and it's there, but we don't see like the demand for it.
Right.
So the bartenders are not there. I kept all my management team and all my chefs, and I paid them full salaries. And then we're taking little steps on giving people breaks and time off so we can kind of stay within our means. But that's a challenge. I may stream both restaurants out of one location coming soon, because it's too much.
Right.
You know, it's just too much. I don't know how everybody else is doing it, but it's pretty crazy.
Well, I think that's one thing that I think, again, is a huge misconception right now, is that when you're working with a skeleton crew, to be able to make even a little bit of money, it really puts a huge, even though you don't have the volume of orders coming in, it still puts, a huge burden on you, because,
Sure.
You're trying to make sure that you have that balance between the right amount of orders and the right amount of people there. And I think that's, extremely difficult. And just to touch on something that you mentioned before with, staff not feeling comfortable or at risk, I think that's another thing people are not worried about or not thinking about, because I think we constantly think about, oh, I'm so nervous about takeout, because I've been getting this question an awful lot. I'm so nervous about takeout. Is it safe to get takeout? And of course that answer is yes. And it's been answered a million different ways by a million different people and published, but people are still nervous. But people aren't thinking about you, who actually has to go and work with a distributor, or going to a store to pick something up, or making all these deliveries. And you've got your gloves on and you've got your mask on, but you're really the ones at risk more than us at home, receiving the food.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot more variables, and not all of our guests are super careful.
Right.
So I'm trying to make sure that we follow the precautions at soup. But you're absolutely correct. Like when both my head chefs came up to me and said, in Nyack, and were like, we want to be home for a couple weeks. What can I say? I mean, they're not sick. They're not. They might as well be wrapped in cellophane. That's how careful we are. We take 2 days to really like scrub the crap out of the restaurant. But I can't blame them. We love them, and they're talented, and we've invested our time in them for years, so this is something that, and like, I know tons of chefs that are great in the kitchen, like Scott from L'Inizio. He's like a freaking master in his kitchen, but there's one problem with me for doing it. When I do that, I become a spoke in the wheel. So when something happens, I have no defense. And I always look at it like that. And someone told me that like a long time ago. Every business has to have like a little bit of defense somewhere. So when shit hits the fan, it's, and it's like, that's where I love being in the kitchen. And it's like therapy for me to be in the kitchen. But if I'm not organizing or delegating through my chefs, then I'm a spoke. And all it takes is one, like today, my internet went down, and there's orders coming in. I have no idea like why it went down. I could take a couple hours and do it, but I'm in the kitchen now. So I'm just going to let the internet be shot until I can figure it out on Monday, like that's loss of money. If I can't get the orders in, it's a loss of money. So it's things like that.
And, this is a great opportunity to also ask you, with talking about that and you being that spoke and being in the kitchen now, how many hours are you working now to make a portion of the profits you would make versus the hours that you would make in like the normal situation?
Yeah. I mean, we all do, like, I work every day, and I do take like half a day on Sundays, and I take other half day somewhere else in the week. But that was because we were able to make it work and make money and save money, and it was something I committed to with my family behind me, saying like, we're okay doing this for an amount of time. Now we're working, 16-hour days, which is not abnormal. That's not an abnormal restaurant shift. But the only thing I did for myself was I closed Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and I'm trying to push all the orders Thursday through Sunday, just because one, I don't have the people to cover all those days, and it saves payroll.
Right.
It allows me to kind of like have just one dishwasher, not two. Not that there's a plethora of people walking through the door for jobs.
Right.
But it allows me to like do it with what I got.
Well, just even to touch on that, because I've been hearing from a lot of chefs that it's even hard to get staff, because with the hours that you're working with, which is, sometimes limited, doing certain days or doing certain time periods, they're getting more money now on unemployment doing nothing.
It's happening everywhere. It's exactly right. Like I'm scared to bring in new people. There's a couple guys I know that are on unemployment, and I bring them in to work a day or shift because they want to get out of their house,
Mm-hmm.
But then they go and start spreading the word to my my employees, like, hey, I'm on the couch, I'm just here hanging out, cooking lamb.
Mm-hmm.
And my employees are like, what am I doing?
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm at risk, I'm making less money, I'm working more hours.
Right.
And I'm like, I don't blame I don't blame you. Like you're onto something. Yeah. Like, I mean, I could never do that, but that's what happened. It happened this Easter, last Sunday. We were completely slammed. I mean, running out of lamb. I mean, we bought all the lamb we could from our source. I mean, it was gone. We had to cut off orders, and I had to bring in some people. Mm-hmm. And like, I walk into the kitchen and I hear that conversation. I'm like, man, like, and sure enough, a couple days later, my chef's gone, so.
And what about
part of the story.
The SBA and PPP loans? Any luck?
Yeah, like I got one. I got one, which, it went right into paying all the payroll I owed to everyone up to this point. Mm-hmm. Or a loan I took against that. But, I think for us it was six grand. Mm-hmm. For us, $6,000 is our break even is $6,000 in 1 week. Just not even to open, just to exist, rent and insurance and this and that. So, but I'm honestly, it's a country that I'm proud of and I'm very, very appreciative of. Like I believe that people worked somewhere for us to do that, and I'm very, very appreciative. But I always laugh, like restaurants, they can spend money so quickly and not make anything out of it. Like we deal with these big numbers, like 20s and 30s and 50s and $60,000, but it's gone so quickly, mm-hmm. Because that's how that margin operates. You're still only taking a very small amount out of that, whatever it is. Mm-hmm. So.
And now, how are you currently getting your current offerings out to the public so they know what you're doing?
Think what I'm going to start doing, because I've been doing it all right to my cell phone right now, and we're just mm-hmm. offering this like little menu, is I'm going to just come up with a weekly menu and then post it on social. Mm-hmm. When we figure out like what days we are working and what hours we're accepting orders and what day, because that stuff's important. People are calling my cell phone like 24 hours a day or texting it like when they're hungry. Mm-hmm. And I got to figure out like a system where you almost got to tell people orders in by this time and this is why and stuff like that. So I'm getting a little bit better at saying no to certain things too.
Well, I think it's a learning curve for you because first of all, you're a person and one in an industry that you don't say no very often. And no. And two, I think there's a huge educational component right now to help people understand why you need, your orders in by X day or X time, to make it happen. So it's,
Yep.
essentially why I'm trying to do these interviews, to really show people the behind the scenes of what's going on and the reality of the situation, because the business of food has never been, a great business to be in, right? Like the statistics
Mhm.
always tell us, but
Sure.
in this current
Sure.
landscape, it's,
Yep.
even more difficult.
Yeah. I mean, I remember what you said from, I think it was our last Zoom meeting, and it was important. And I think everyone, you said at the end, just make sure when you post things, post hours, post times, and when, like, because that's been that's where the organization for us is helpful. Like when you see people calling like before 2 and rushing in their orders, at least now you have 3 orders to source, cook, and do what you got to do, or accept the order or not. But as restaurant people decide they want a chicken in 5 minutes. It's what it is. We do it. But it's I thought that was like really important when you said that last week, that this is a game of who does what and where. There's enough to go around, but it's like who's doing what and where, and almost less amounts of time and availability is better for all of us. That way we can spread the wealth and keep it tight and keep it. I mean, nobody's eating at 10 o'clock anymore right now. I mean, I don't know what happens in people's homes, but they're looking forward to their next meal, and it's at 5 or 6 or 7 latest. Those are like the rebels. Those are like the bad boys and girls. Yeah, they're like 7 o'clock, like we're coming in to get a chicken. Like, holy shit, what are you up to? But that's what we're seeing. We're seeing everyone's being conditioned into this dining of 12 to 8 latest, and that's gonna stay that way for a little bit, I think, when this is all over.
Yeah, I think we're going to see some pretty interesting changes after all of this. But I think, and I think I said this on the Zoom call on this Monday, when we, kind of get all our chefs together, heads together, so we can kind of collaborate and see, what we can change and learn from each other. But I think the landscape now is really going to shift in your favor, because I think before, a lot of the conversation and dialogue between diners and restaurants, I think, was really fueled by things like the Food Network and what they see on Instagram and, celebrity chefs. And I think the reality of the situation is becoming more and more to light. And I think you guys have the opportunity now really to drive the narrative.
I agree. Yeah, there was a lot of false stuff out there, and I think that was that's problematic in its own right. But I think now it's what better casual dining was already happening and evolving at that point. Like one thing done well, a meatball shop or a taco joint, with great food, with great ingredients, with a good price. I mean, that was something that was happening. And on our side, we're like a little more foo-foo, but we're starting to realize that already. This is just going to be the catalyst to, like, there's going to be, I mean, we're going to probably try to figure out a way to open a bar and a takeout place, and maybe do parties that are high end. But like, what is a party gonna look like? Is there gonna be like we're gonna turn our copper bar into just a bunch of boxes, and our bar will be at our tables 6 feet apart, and hopefully that'll work for a little while.
Yeah.
And the customers will tell us what they're comfortable with. But in Nyack especially, you have older, younger, different colors, different sizes, different shapes. They all feel differently about this. There's one guy who's walking in the other day, very nice, but big, beautiful mask with pink, green all over it, and it's on his head, and he's speaking to us. I said, and he was an older gentleman.
Yeah.
And he's a customer, and I was just saying, the mask is great when it's on your head, but when you put it on your face, it's very, his blasé attitude about it alone. Now, what does that look like next to another table in a couple months or whatever,
Right.
and how close they are, and how they're dining and how we're serving? I mean, it's still impossible to give someone a plate of food unless you get close to them.
Mm-hmm.
So my idea is that it's going to be all about maybe virtual dining, virtual service, virtual assistance to cooking at home.
Mm-hmm.
Drinking still seems to be out there as a bar thing. I'm
Of
seeing,
course.
but yeah, like things go out the window all of a sudden. I don't know if I should say this on Easter. Two customers came in and said, "Can we just have a drink at the Copper Bar?" And like, I'm like, you're not really supposed to do that. Nobody was in the restaurant. They just wanted to sit there and have a cocktail and leave.
Mm-hmm.
So we did it. I'm sorry. Don't kill me, but it's like, it's Easter, and
Yeah.
they just miss that. They miss like talking to someone that they just met as a bartender and getting a drink and having a 5-minute chat and leaving, and it made their day. So, but that's not going to be everybody.
I think you're right. I think there's going to be two schools of thought. I think, and I will tell you, this is most of my friends, the conversations that we have, it's going to be a mass exodus from our house, and we're running straight to the bars.
Right.
Because we're so starving for community and attention and being social. And of course,
Right.
miss the ambiance and environment of a restaurant and a bar. And then I think you're right. You're going to have, people who are worried and are going to stay home for a little bit and continue with the takeout. So it's going to be an interesting balance.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I agree.
Well, thank you so much. I know how busy you are, so I really appreciate you taking the time to
Of course. No, I love to chat with you anytime. And let me know when the next one is, and I'll have something else to bitch about.
You got it.
All right, cool.
All right, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. All of you out there, I hope that this is valuable information for you and that you're learning something. And I greatly appreciate Chef Constantine for coming on and offering his insight. And I hope, even though you're at home and we are in the current landscape, I really hope you're taking the time to live life deliciously.